Therapists aren't just bringing their skills into business, they're bringing their trauma patterns too. In today's episode, Sarah Buino and I talk about therapist burnout, ethical group practices, developmental trauma, relationships, polyamory, intuition. Now, unresolved wounds can quietly shape the way we lead, connect, and build businesses. This conversation is honest, deep, and probably going to hit home for a lot of people. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Lunar Counseling Podcast. I'm your host, Kiara Brown, an LPC, EMDR Certified Therapist, Certified Hypnotherapist, and the owner of Lunar Counseling. This podcast is a space for grounded, real conversations with therapists, healers, and guides about the deeper layers of mental health, trauma, embodiment, and what truly means to build sustainable, integrity-filled healing work. Today, I am honored to welcome Sarah Buino to the podcast. Sarah is a visionary therapist, consultant, and speaker dedicated to transforming the healing profession by integrating clinical depth with grounded business strategy. She's the founder of Head Heart Therapy, Inc., Head Heart Business Therapy, wow, I can't talk right there, and Group Practice Revolution, where she supports therapists in aligning their personal growth with meaningful professional impact. She's also the host of the podcast Conversations with a Wounded Healer, where she explores how our own healing journeys shape the way we show up for clients, teams, and communities. Her work centers on cultivating cultures of belonging, relational consciousness, and the integrity and group practice, all guided by her values of authenticity, liberation, compassion, and abundance. So welcome, Sarah. I'm so glad you're here. And you're
Yeah.
amazing today.
I'm excited to chat with you. Yeah.
Thank you. So I get to ask everyone, what brought you into the therapy world?
My fucked up family.
Pretty
Right?
much.
Let's be honest. Yeah, I probably always wanted to be a therapist as soon as I knew what they were, but I didn't quite know how to do it. I was raised in Southern Ohio, and in Ohio, social workers are more like DCFS workers, like child welfare, and so that wasn't even on my radar, but I was working in the arts. I was a music major undergrad, and I didn't student teach, so I had a useless degree, and I started working as a business manager in an art school and saw a therapist at that time. And I was like, yeah, I want to go back to school. And she's, oh, if you do social work, it's only a 2-year degree and you don't even need to take the GRE. And I was like, bye. And I went and signed up immediately and realized when I was there, a big driver was wanting to really put my finger on what happened to me as a child because it wasn't like as far as I could tell at that time, no overt abuse. We generally had our basic needs met, and I couldn't figure out why I was suicidal most of my life. And so it was the best foundation for my own healing. And it's always been the driver. My own healing is the driver for everything that I do and hoping that I can share that with others.
Well, that is just so powerful. Because there's so many people there's no overt abuse, but always a feeling of why am I so disconnected? Why do I feel out of place? I don't belong anywhere. So that means I don't belong in the world.
Yep.
All these things kind of pile up, and can be hard to navigate whenever you can't put a legit finger on why you're feeling that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I figured it out years later. And honestly, it wasn't even until I became a trauma therapist that I better understood what it was that I went through. So that was like 10 years into my career. And I studied a NARM, the neuroaffective relational model, and it was developmental trauma, right? That was the thing that I could finally put my finger on because it wasn't one event. It wasn't even a handful of events. It was literally like my whole relationship with both of my parents that created this disconnection and this distrust of myself. And then through NARM, learning it both professionally and going through it personally gave me so many more ahas about my own experience that made me trust myself again.
Yeah. So how often in your life were you second guessing every decision that you made or every thought that you had?
I wouldn't It's funny, I'm a person who is pretty connected to my own power anyway. I always move through the world with what other people would call a sense of fearlessness. So for me, it was less about questioning every decision I made, but it was in relational situations where I would essentially give away my power to somebody that I believed knew more than me, or somebody that I loved, assuming that they would love me back the same way that I was loving them. And it's only when I started recognizing how much of that I was giving away that I was able to be like, wait a minute, no, I do know what's going on. And I can look back to my family of origin when I really didn't understand what was going on because I was a child, right? My family had a legacy of alcoholism on both sides of my family. And so even though neither of my parents were alcoholics, there was a lot of stuff that came through there. I was sexually abused when I was very young, so I didn't have memories of that. There's like all of this stuff where it sets you up to assume that you are the problem. And then I just carry that into my adult relationships, assuming if I only could say the right thing or do the right thing or make the right choices, then everything will be okay. And now it's I am making choices and the other person is making choices. And I can trust that I do know what's going on because I intuited it all when I was a kid, but I couldn't tolerate the fact that my parents were not really seeing me and loving me at that time.
That is so true. It sounds like, yeah, especially if you give it a good intuition gift and it gets so suppressed
Yeah.
as a young child, like it's hard to know as I have this feeling, I have this intuition, whether it be like from your spleen, your gut, like from wherever it's coming from, what's going on, but everyone else is like, no, this is not right. Saying it should be this way, this it should be that way. It was like, no, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's about I'm glad you were able to actually finally step into that power fully in your adult relationships. What was that
Right.
journey like for you to be like actually willing to step into it?
It's changed everything. I've been married for almost 20 years now. This is our 19th year of marriage, but we became polyamorous about 12 years ago. And so it's interesting that I have the most amazing husband who it was the first person truly to love me unconditionally. And I honestly think that gave me a foundation from which to start to build some of this work. But all of the relationship drama has been acted out in other relationships and then also in my business life, which has been really challenging to, yeah, see how much I keep going through some old patterns, not romantically anymore, but now I do it in business. And
Mm.
yeah, yeah, there's lots of stories there we could get into, but I also want to be like, I don't want to tell
Yeah,
everybody's story, but
yeah, I understand that. I just, I don't, obviously don't divulge anything, but I'm curious, like in the business aspect, because you're right. Like even though it's not a romantic relationship, it's still a relationship. What part of it is triggering your past for you? If you like, can say like, a little bit on that.
yeah, I think probably the most obvious situation happened when gosh, this was about 7 or 8 years ago now. I had been approached by somebody who was a colleague and friend of mine, and he wanted to create an intensive outpatient. He was living and working in a different state, but going to school in Chicago and was seeing everything that I was doing in my career. And he's, oh, we could work together and create this amazing thing and yada. And we didn't have any sort of business arrangement, but I said, "Oh, yeah, of course I'll do this." And I spent tons of money and tons of time setting this whole thing up, basically creating a second business for myself because I was already running a group practice. Then I started this IOP, and all of what he had promised to give me, he didn't. And he kept saying all of the right things, but his behavior was completely different. And that is a lot about my childhood, right? Like my mother always saying the things that were exactly right, but that it didn't match what was going on with her behavior, what was happening inside of her. And I got myself into about $50,000 deficit that year and ended up feeling suicidal because I was just like, why can't I make this work? Again, like it was about I'm clearly doing something wrong rather than recognizing this person actually doesn't have my best interest at heart. And once I extricated myself from that relationship, I was able to rebuild my business even stronger because I finally was like, oh, I need to think like a business owner and not just think like a person in relationships who wants to do cool stuff with her friends. So that instance, even though it was extraordinarily painful is really, I think, started to shape the trajectory of the work that I do with businesses because
Yeah.
I wanna help people not get themselves into these situations that are gonna cause irreparable damage for some people.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, if you get that deep into debt, it can be somebody's marriage ending for some
Mhm.
people. It's hard. I'm gonna sound like an odd question, but because I've had other marriage counselors on in the past, can you talk a little bit about how you and your husband kind of navigate like the polyamorous piece, and if you do anything where work with that with your clients?
Yeah, I only see 3 individual clients nowadays. Most of the work I do is consulting with businesses and training and speaking and that sort of thing, but I do have 1 polyamorous client right now and have had several in the past. I believe that polyamory is a sexual orientation for some. It is for me. I had been a cheater my whole life, and I thought, "Oh, I just haven't met the right person." And I knew my husband was the right person, but then I cheated on him anyway, and that led to this big existential crisis because I knew I was supposed to be with him, but also knew that there was this other part of me that wasn't being explored, and somebody slid the ethical slut over my way and was like, "Maybe you should read this." Are you familiar with that book?
I'm familiar with that. I haven't read it, but I've heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's outdated now, but at the time, it was the only book written about polyamory. It's so funny what a different time it was, like, 12 years ago, but so I read that and I was like, "Oh, I think this is me." And so then that's what I said to my husband. I said, "Hey, somebody brought this book to my attention, and I think this is who and what I am. Would you be willing to talk about this?" And he's such an old soul, like, he's been through all of the things in all the other lives, and so I really think this life for him is about learning to experience pleasure, and so what better way to do that than through polyamory? And so he was up for experimenting and seeing if it was for him. It is definitely not the way that he is wired, but there have been many times in our relationship where I was like, "So do you wanna close things down?" And he's very quickly, "No." And, I mean, I hate to brag, but I think he and I are just a really good match. Like, most of my friends say that our marriage is what they wanna pattern themselves after, and we communicate really well. We did before we opened things up, and then you just have to be 100% honest when you're navigating this sort of lifestyle. And yeah, we're 100% honest with each other. And we said at the very beginning, we know that we will hurt each other, not because we are intending to, but because it's just challenging to do this. And if we want to do it, we have to be okay with that. And we just have to promise to keep coming back to one another and talking it through. And polyamory has never caused a problem between he and I other than both of us having chaotic relationships outside and then what impacting our bandwidth for each other, but it never happens at the same time, luckily, and so we can both really be there for the other person, and honestly, I don't think there's anything more intimate than supporting somebody else through heartbreak, and it's been, I think, very sweet when we show up for each other in that way, and there's nobody that I would rather have a life with. He is my life partner, no question about it, and that's never gonna change no matter who else I choose to spend my time with.
That is amazing. That is like a love story to be able to, like,
Yeah.
to have that. Like, that's just so sweet. I'm so happy that you have that.
Thank you. It's such a blessing. If I wouldn't have found him, I think I probably would have ended up more on the, like, borderline personality spectrum, because that's where I was headed before I met him, and that foundation of unconditional love changed everything.
Oh, yeah, it does so much healing, like, even, like, that little piece. It's just like whenever you're talking about trauma, right? Like, someone could
Yes.
experience the same thing, but if someone has, like, really supportive, loving people right after the aftermath, it
Yeah.
doesn't go always at the level of PTSD. But if someone doesn't and they're left handling it on their own, or,
Right.
like, they're so disconnected, it can lead to PTSD, like, really
Right.
quickly. Oh, I'm so glad that makes my heart happy for you, like, just hearing that.
Thanks. Yeah. I have so many friends that have said, "I don't know anyone that does polyamory except for you guys." And we have a couple other friends in our lives that are navigating it really well, and I feel really confident in their relationships too, but it's interesting that it's become so much more normalized now which on one hand is great because, yeah, let's get other relationship styles on the table. But also, I think there are a lot of people causing a lot of harm under the guise of, oh, this is just polyamory. You're not doing it right. And that's bullshit. So we need to work on our relationships with one another these days. I got to say, humans
I fully agree with that. Like, communication is not a skill a lot of people have, and it's so key.
and
Like,
accountability. That's,
yes.
that's the biggest piece because you can communicate all day, but if you are not holding yourself accountable to your harmful behavior, that there's nothing you can do. Like I can talk to you all day, but if you're not going to say, I'm sorry, I hurt you and really mean it, there's nothing.
Yeah, that is so true. As you're talking about, like, people doing harm to the polyamory community, I'm thinking of one couple that I had a consult with. I didn't really go much further than that because, like, we weren't the right fit. But the one spouse had opened the marriage without actually consulting the other partner prior to doing so. I'm like, "That's not polyamory."
That's called cheating.
Yeah. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
It's and the other partner is, "I don't want this. Is not what I agreed
Yep.
to. This is not anything like that." So it's like this you can't force someone to be okay with that if they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you familiar with Lindy West? The
Mm,
show Shrill that A.D. Bryant was in? Did you ever watch that?
I haven't, no.
I think she's a journalist. I think that's her background, and I haven't even read the story yet, but I just saw the image on Facebook yesterday where she talks about her experience of being in a marriage where her partner wanted to open the marriage and she didn't want to. I'm really interested to read it because I think we do need to talk about that more honestly. And again, like I have never heard anybody else say that polyamory is a sexual orientation, but that's just how I feel, and I can tell you that is my natural way of being in the world, and I would hope that we can help people differentiate for themselves. Is this something that constitutionally is already within me and I just need to have the experiences around that? Or like my husband, am I constitutionally able to tolerate this or enjoy it? That sort of thing. And then there are
Yeah,
people that are not. Polyamory is not for everyone, just monogamy is not for everyone. We should have all
yeah,
of the gradations in between. Just sexuality isn't just straight or gay, it's a whole constellation.
exactly. I fully agree with that because I can look at another person and be like, "Yeah, this person's really attractive." But for me, like, I can't see myself stepping outside with outside my husband. That's just not who I am. I also
Yep.
get really jealous
Yeah.
too. So that's not doesn't make the best.
Yeah. If you wanted to make it work, there are ways to work with jealousy. But yeah, if you guys are both, this is what you want for your relationship, then that's exactly what it should be.
And thing like yeah, like you said, like finding what works for you is like the most important thing. And this is not always real life, but I read a lot of erotica novels where like they have like the multiple partners, right? And like they open up that way and it can be like really beautiful and like they have all these things. It's almost and it's like a bigger support system, which I think is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, that would be my fantasy to build a family, honestly. We decided not to have kids, and part of the reason is I knew that I wouldn't be able to take on the bulk of the labor because there's too many things I wanted to do in the world, and we had this fantasy of, "Oh, yeah, if we had partners and we had a 2 flat and they lived upstairs and we lived down here, it would be so great." But yes, it's a lot harder to find those people and have everybody on the same page of what they want. I'm sure there are people out there that are doing it beautifully. That's not in the cards for me right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think yeah, that would be really cute. It's also just having an extra set of hands too, if you do have children. Because I mean, it's my husband and I. We have 2 kids. That's it's nice to be a bit much. Sometimes you just
I
like
can't even imagine, especially nowadays.
yeah, especially right now we're in the thick of it. My oldest is 5, my youngest is 3. So it's that
Bless you.
that fun stuff. Can you tell me about how your transition went from actually doing more therapy to doing more like business consulting? What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, so my practice Head Heart Therapy, that was the group practice, and I had it for about 10 years. I started as a solo and then hired people about a year in. And I knew pretty quickly, like after I had the experience with the IOP, I was like, "All right, I'm gonna, like, really give this a go and really try to be a business owner." And it was just it's if you've never had employees, you just cannot understand how hard it is, like, the weight that you're carrying, making sure that people can put food on their table, and it's just management is really challenging, especially with therapists. Because come on, you guys, we are super emotional and needy, and we all have our own trauma histories, so we are not easy people to manage, and so I recognized that I needed to get out, and I decided to hire an executive director. And my hope was either this works, we can do it with an executive director, or I just close the whole thing down. And the executive director, her name's Raelle Grayson. She ended up buying the business. She ended up wanting to be a business owner, but not needing to build it herself. It was honestly like she was sent to me by the universe to help me like transition from something that was really like literally the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I want to help people do it in a way that's less painful. What I have found in business consulting that most people want to do it in the most painful way possible. Like therapists do not want to listen. It's just mind blowing to me how much therapists seem to think that we can all do it better and then bang our heads against the wall doing the same mistakes that everybody has done before rather
Mhm.
than just spending a little money and hiring somebody. So that's where I found things over the last couple years. And to me, it feels what I'm interested in is, like, helping people be in integrity because it's really easy to start a group therapy practice. It's really hard to do it well and do it with integrity. There are so many ways that you can harm your employees and not do things in ethical ways, and so I wanna help people be ethical, be in their integrity, build cultures that are really supportive of their staff, and I think that it is so incredibly hard to do it at this time in our lives when AI and private equity are really disrupting our industry in ways that we probably should have seen coming but didn't. And now it feels like the entire field of therapists are frozen a bit and scared and unsure about how to move forward as a field, not only business-wise and how do we deal with private equity, but also I feel like philosophically and theoretically, how do we start to integrate this idea that therapy is political? That seems way more widespread and accepted nowadays, and yet it's contested from some people who believe that are practicing that in different ways. Some people are telling their clients what they think, and some of us are not, and trying to bring in themes. It's just, it's everything is in flux right now, and so it feels we are at a big precipice of evolution. And I really hope that therapists can get out of this freeze state and show up for this period of time that is so crucial in moving humanity forward. Like, we have the ability to move humanity forward in a really meaningful way, but only if we do that work ourselves.
My gosh, that's the exact same thing that I'm going through right now. Because I own my own small practice and it's just me. And in grad school, I didn't learn anything about business. I have no business owners in my family. I'm doing this all on my own. And I found coaches and mentors to help me, but it's like starting out, I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So
Right.
I just dove head first and like, I'll figure it out. And I figured it out, but it's like, it's still hard to do all the things that as a business owner and try to ethically. And but I've made a decision like, I am not ever going to go to the group practice route. Cause like you said, like managing people, no, not my jam. And I don't
I'm
want to do
so
that.
proud of you for knowing that because it's interesting how in the field we have these like echelons of success. And private practice used to be the highest rung on the ladder, right? If I start my private practice, then I've reached the top. But now it seems that people get into private practice and everybody's full because there's so many clients. Everybody is wanting therapy now that people are like, "Oh, no, I wanna have a group practice, and that's the biggest thing," and it's, "Who told you that? Why? Why is that the biggest thing? Is that really what you want, or is that capitalism telling you that is the most successful thing that you can do?" Honestly, I think having a solo practice and running it really well and knowing exactly who your clients are, that can absolutely be the most successful thing, and if you work in community mental health for your entire career, that's what my husband's gonna do. He's a social worker now, and he's gonna work in community mental health He works with older adults. That is totally his jam. He's going to have a wildly successful career. Like, we have got to get out of this capitalistic, like Western mindset of more is better if we're going to survive this.
Yeah, I agree with you. And like, we desperately need community mental health. I personally think, and the model for it desperately needs to change
Yes.
because it is so rife with so many failures on so many levels. I cut my teeth in community mental health, where you have to cut your teeth
Same.
in this field. Like, you can't get in the field without cutting your teeth there. Like,
That's part of what's happening right now, at least in the Chicago area. People are going straight from grad school into private practice, and so they're missing that really foundational, scrappy time of doing the work and falling on your face, but having people to help you get back up. So I think that's actually caused a lot of challenge to the field as well.
I agree. I had so many friends in my grad school program, they went into either group practice or private practice. I'm like, you can't. I agree. I don't think you can do this field effectively without getting exposed to all the things that are out there and figure out what you really don't want. Because I saw a whole lot of personality disorders. I saw like schizophrenic things. Like,
Yep.
that's not my jam. I can't. My
Substance abuse, right.
substance abuse. I can't. It's
Mhm.
not me. And if you're in recovery, and you've been in recovery for a long time, yeah, come to me. I'll help you with that. But to get into recovery, active addiction, that's not me.
Yep, and you gotta
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. And some people don't. And and that's why the point, like, if you just start out in private practice or group practice, that's why you just need money. Because you get paid for seeing people, so you take whoever you can get, but that
Mhm.
leads so many issues.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that private equity is going into they were going into the treatment center space, and I'm sure that they're still doing that, but now they're going into the group practice space, of course, because it makes more money. But honestly, the money really needs to go into community mental health because, like you said, if we can reconfigure those structures at the foundational level so that the clients with the highest acuity are actually getting the best care rather than it being a bunch of new therapists who, like, don't know what they're doing and they're all cutting their teeth and whatnot, and it isn't sustainable because you only make $30,000 a year or whatever it is. Yeah, the whole model's gotta change.
Yeah. I It's like you needed to learn to experience things, but you don't make money that's actually sustainable. And you get clients that you don't have training for. I remember when I used to work for, they gave me a DID client, and I wasn't even fully
Mhm.
licensed. I was working on my licensure hours. I had no training in DID. I'm like,
Right.
why are you giving this client to me? I am not equipped to handle this person, and like, you're giving them to me anyway. And
Who else are they gonna go to? That's
yeah,
probably what they said.
basically, and
Yeah.
that client had fired one of the therapists in the practice. And I'm like, yeah, because they're not getting what they need.
Yeah. Yeah.
I left shortly after that. I'm like, I just can't do this.
Yeah, and where are you in the country?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely an interesting experience to do that for sure. So can you tell me a little bit more about like your business model and how you go into businesses and do consulting for them?
Yeah, so I realized recently that I really love to work on essentially 3 different levels. So the individual level, the organizational level, and then looking at the big picture systemic level. And most of what I do is practice owners will come to me, we do individual consulting together, and then that impacts their practice in whatever way. I recently finally what I've really been wanting to do is get my hands on entire teams because that's my favorite when everybody shows up and we get to do work. And I got to do that with an ENT practice last week, actually. And we were using the Enneagram to think about how everybody is showing up and working together and communicating. Because one of the things that I've seen in group practice is that it seems to be shifting a little bit, but there's been a lot of fighting in between practice owners and employees. And what I found with that is when I can support the employees and empower them to know how the business works a little bit, once they understand it, they feel less, oh, this practice owner is taking 50% of my income. They're like, oh, I'm contributing. I'm getting my money and I'm also contributing to the business as a whole so that we can all have health insurance. We can all have a 401k and we can all have these benefits that we have because that's really what the model is. And wanting to figure out ways where we can still have healthy, viable businesses, but everybody be paid what they need to be paid and feel supported and cared for and feel nurtured and have professional growth and all that sort of stuff. So that's the other thing that I've started to want to do more. And my best friend's practice, she's let me come in and do things with her group as well. And just it just depends. Like some practice owners come when they're in crisis. And so we've got to deal with whatever crisis is going on at that time.
Yeah.
It's funny, most people will come to me saying that they wanna make more money, and I'm like, "That's not what I do." I think that running a good business, money will be the product of that, and so if we start with leadership development and making sure that you've got solid policies and procedures and everything is not only sound business-wise, but also ethical with your staff, that you will make money. That will just naturally happen. I'm never gonna focus straight in on the money first. That's like the values check alignment that I need to have with people that I work with. Yeah, and then we go from there. And one of my consulting clients said that what you have helped me realize is that everything that happens in my personal life, all of my trauma, all of my relational issues, all are showing up in my business. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly right. And that's why I call it head heart business therapy, because I'm not doing therapy with you, but it almost feels like therapy, but we're doing it from this business oriented lens to not only help you personally, but also help you run your business better.
That is so cool. Like, it reminds me of
Thanks.
one of my coaches. She does human design, and she did like human design readings for a
Yeah.
company one time and help them like understand like how they show up in the space and like
Yep.
why they match, why they don't match, and all those things. It's just like super cool to hear her like how she did that, and it's just amazing to be able to help people really
Yeah.
understand everyone else in that way.
Yeah, my consultant, so Athena Collective, they use human design as well, and so one of my consultants from their organization did my human design, and it's been helping me too because I've been trying to build this platform, Group Practice Revolution, and it's just not been getting off the ground. And one of the things that came out of my human design reading was I need to be invited into spaces rather than creating the space and having people come to me, and that made me change everything. So now I'm recognizing like, okay, I've got this stuff. If you invite me into your practice, I will give you all of this stuff that I have, but I can't just sit back and make people come to me. So that's what I'm like toying with now. Like, how can I use all of this stuff that I've already built and bring it into people's practices so their employees can feel more supported, the practice owner can feel more supported, and hopefully we can be happy, healthy businesses together.
You're a projector.
I'm not. Is it manifesting generator? Is that it? I don't know it well enough to tell you, but I'm not a projector. I can tell you that.
I'm a projector, and projectors we have to wait for the invitation to do it. And manifestors are they inform people of what's going on and what they have. Manifesting generators and generators respond to environment.
It's the respond. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
reflectors, I can't remember what reflectors are because they're so rare. But yeah. Yeah. And then do you also know though that your business also has its own human design?
Yes. I wish that I remembered the time that it was born though. I don't know how to find that.
What was the time that you got like your 1099 or your LLC?
Yeah.
That would be
2021 actually, a couple years before I sold.
yeah, so that time the time on that document would be its time of conception,
I don't think there's
essentially.
a time on it though. Just says the date. I know.
Gosh,
I knew that because somebody else had mentioned it before for the other business. I knew that. I should have been, like, paying more attention.
I didn't know about it until I went to a retreat with my coach, and we were doing a whole human design thing, and she said that too.
Yep.
It's just interesting too, because the energies are, like, different. Because my business is manifesting, but I'm personally a projector. So, like, those Things are
Yeah.
so weird.
Yeah, and how do you work with both? Yeah, how do you
Yeah.
combine that?
Because it's not my natural way of being and trying to like navigate it. It's just so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Random question, but I've seen you hold a crystal in your hand. I couldn't get a good look at it. What is it?
Lepidolite.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's so pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, I always have something. I've got a bunch of them, but this one was just closest.
Nice. What is that one for?
I think it's emotional healing. I honestly can't remember. I've gotten out of crystal collecting now that I've gotten into plants and I'm super into my plant babies, but I still hold these cuz I just feel more grounded and I like to do things with my hands. So, I have totally all of the crystal knowledge has gone out of my brain.
Yeah, trying to learn more about it because just trying to find other things to kind of help keep everything going and manifesting and like going into a little bit of the more spiritual woo world has been on my journey.
Mhm.
Also, a thing that I've been loving about being out of community mental health because I can actually do that in community mental health. Yes, that's been really fun. Do you ever do anything with that with like your businesses? Do you help them incorporate that aspect into their businesses?
Only when that's what they want. I think there's so many people who are not into that, but I'm obviously maybe it's not obvious, but I am incredibly spiritual and I have been channeling my guides recently and I have done spells and more witchcraft specific things in the past. And it's funny, I find though that what the message that I keep getting essentially is that I'm already on my path. I don't have to do anything to manifest. I just need to keep putting one foot in front of the other that I'm already on the path. And I keep trying to remind myself like this year when I started like channeling my guides, I just got the message like make space and just do your work. Make space and do your work. And I was, like, really struggling with, "How do I make space? I'm trying to do the work and I can't, yeah, da, da, da." And then I finally started realizing some of the things that I just needed to let go, like, I had this very specific idea of how group practice revolution was gonna be and how some of these other parts of my life were gonna work, and as soon as I allowed myself to consider changing and doing it a little bit differently, all of a sudden I've gotten, like, 4 referrals this week, and I've never gotten 4 referrals in 1 week for consulting, like, sure, individual clients, but not consulting, so I'm like, "Okay, I hear you. Thank you. I understand what this means. I will take this and just keep putting that foot forward."
Yeah, I love that you say that too because I've done a whole bunch of oracle readings for myself, especially like during the lunar new year. It's the same message, like keep doing the things. You're on the right path.
Yep.
Just wait for things to come in their own time.
Yep.
'Cause I've always been like one of those people where I have a set deadline and like a specific goal of what I want. And I have to learn, okay, you doesn't have to be super specific. You just have the goal. And then as the time comes, you'll get there. Not have a hard like deadline.
And it might be different, right? Your guides and your higher power might have a totally different plan for you. And I think that's the piece of moving the capitalistic ideals out of our practice of woo is manifesting is privilege and it's also ego and it's also talent. We can do that, but like, how about we allow? How about we have loose things that we're holding? You know, what is success is so different for everybody. And I hope that the practice of good work in and of itself is successful rather than having this goal and then, oh, I didn't meet the goal, so I wasn't successful this year. Bullshit. I bet every single person listening to this podcast can really, if they're honest with themselves, look back and look at the successes that they've had. Maybe they didn't meet something specific, but like, these ideas about what we think we're supposed to be creating, I think the universe has a way more expansive plan for us, and we need to get out of the way.
Yes, like that 100% to that. Yes. Because that's how I felt at the end of last year. I didn't hit this arbitrary goal I set for myself. But then I
Right.
look back and I'm like, but I did all these things. I like
Yes.
implemented all these new things and like I was really successful. And last year's my first full year of doing private practice on my own. Before that, it was like
That's
part time.
huge.
And I was like, yeah, I was like, I had that like little, yeah, it's still huge. It might not be like this one thing, but it's like, I'm only in my 30s. Like, I still have all my life.
Oh my god, you have so much time.
There's like so much to get things. Like,
Yeah.
Come on, get into play.
And you're raising 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the importance of raising conscious, caring humans in a world that is teaching them everything that's the opposite. There's so
Yes.
much success in that.
Yes. I have my oldest is my son, and I don't know if you remember Ohio and Pennsylvania are, like, really close,
Yeah.
kissing cousins, essentially. And
I was on the west side of Ohio, but yes.
yeah. So, the culture, like, of the Appalachian man, that no
Mhm.
emotions, no crying,
Yep.
all of that. It's also men in the United States, and not just
Yep.
probably the world. Like, you can't show emotion. Trying to allow my son to express his emotions because he's a very emotional
Hmm.
child. Like, he's an emotional generator. I'm not. And so giving him space to actually express his emotions has been hard because my husband was raised to suppress his emotions,
Yeah.
even though he himself is supposed to be an emotional manifestation generator, but he was conditioned out of having his emotions. And then my daughter is an emotional, also manifestation generator. So I'm surrounded by all these emotional people and
Yeah.
trying to help them know how to actually express them in effective ways. The challenge because I'm a projector, so I don't have the bandwidth of a place to handle all of their energy, which
Yeah.
has been a challenge, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a whole other podcast, and I'm probably not the most qualified person to talk about it, but I find it really interesting. Like, my husband's been going through what at this point, I would probably call it a depression, and part of it is loneliness for sure. I am his best friend and only friend. Like, all of his buddies from growing up, like, sure, they're friends and they see each other, but they don't talk about real things. And my husband is a way more feminine or like feminine energy type person. And so he doesn't get along with mountain men who don't deal with their emotions. So I find it so interesting, this space that we're in, where the way that men have been socialized and conditioned is no longer the way that they're being socialized and conditioned. But we don't have a lot of images of what a modern man emotionally in touch and all of that sort of looks, or at least some parts of our country are completely rejecting that. And it's going to be so, like, God, the next 5 to 10 years, holy shit, it's going to be so wild to see where we end up on the other side of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely neat. There's some, like, really decent men on the internet that try to portray it, but you're right, like, a lot of men in other areas of the country, they will reject it because it's still so ingrained in them. No, men don't cry, men don't do X, Y, and Z, and what do you
Yeah.
do?
I think Obama honestly was a really good example of that. And look what happened. Like, I think I've heard in many political analyses that the fact that Obama became president is part of why we're in this mess, not because it's his fault, but the backlash. That's how it started, is a rejection of his type of very matriarchal leadership. His household is run by the matriarch, and he like really respects women and very clear. And yeah, a lot of people vehemently did not like it.
Yeah, that is very true. But it also makes sense though, especially for I don't wanna be a stereotypical, but for his race, there's a lot of matriarchal respect in the African American community
Yep.
and the Latina community.
Yep.
There's a huge population in this country where the
Mm.
matriarch is in charge,
Yep.
and it's a good thing.
Seems to be.
Mm,
And I think we have to be careful, as it's very clear that the way men have been running the world is no longer working. And I keep seeing a lot of, yes, rise of the divine feminine, but we also have to be careful not to throw out the important parts of the masculine, because then we are losing a very important aspect of the yin yang of it all. Like, there would only be one gender if we only needed one type of being in the world, but we have so many different genders and so many different expressions and gradations of the masculine feminine energy. Those all need to be included.
yes, 100%. Yeah, like, I'm not one for going way over the other side. I've always said this, like, my entire life, like, I want to be in the middle. I wanna find someone in the middle that can actually balance us out and get us to where we need to be. So I think that's just really what we need. We need someone that can hear both sides and really verbalize it effectively to the masses for things to change.
I honestly don't know. Yeah, and I feel like we're on the verge of totally disrupting, deconstructing the system and building something completely different. Because I actually don't think a president is going to get us through this. It's funny, I thought that a hero was gonna emerge at some point, but I'm more along the lines of no one is coming to save us now. We have to decide collectively what it is that we wanna see moving forward, and it's not gonna be one person that leads the charge. At least that's just my intuitive hit on it all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been saying it for a long time, like, things desperately need to change, and I think we're in the time for it. Like, I feel like this year and next year especially, because I mean, we're the year of the horse, came out of the year of the snake. Next year, 2027, there's gonna be a whole new entry with human design. All these things are coming. Big changes are happening energetically in the universe.
Yep.
What that turns out to be, how it looks, I have no idea. I am not a psychic, but
I don't even
something's
think the
happening.
psychics can predict it because it's new. The Aries Neptune conjunction, I think what someone finally found out that it happened in like the year 400 something BC, and that's the only other time in recorded human history that we think that it has happened, and so this is an initiation of a whole new energy that we can't even predict.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Oh my gosh, Sarah, I feel like we could talk about this for hours, but this
Yeah.
has been amazing. Thank you so much. Before we end, what tips or tricks would you love to leave people with?
Do your own work. That's literally it. Do your own work. Therapists, go to therapy. Hire a consultant, do the shit. That's it.
I think it's simple and profound. I love it.
Thank you.
What's the best way for people to connect with you to learn more or have you be their business consultant?
Yeah, my website or my Instagram, Head Heart Biz Therapy, BIZ, headheartbiztherapy.com, and I'm Head Heart Biz Therapy on Instagram is probably the place I'm most active. So yeah, hit me up.
This has been amazing. And all your links and everything will be down below in the description as well for people to easily click on so they can find you and connect with you. Oh my gosh, but this has been so much fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so glad that to be here. Thank you.